Hello and welcome to the Legacy Tour Huntsville, hosted by JC's House of Cards. My name is Zachary Cuck, I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Christopher Cusera.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Today we're going to be having a 5 rounds of Swiss Legacy competitive REL tournament, finalized by a single elimination top 8. There are 17 competitors in the event, all bringing their legacy best. Our feature match for round 1 is Drake Sasser, Huntsville local on Miracles, playing against Lane Fox, another Huntsville local, on Shardless Sultai. Christopher, your thoughts on this matchup?
Should be a good one. Should be a very long match. Both of these decks tend to be very grindy, tend to want to play the long control game. I don't expect this one to end quickly, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, now the theme or the deck, the game plan of Shardless Sultai is essentially 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 or sometimes even better your opponent until you have such an overwhelming board position that you just win by virtue of just outcarding your opponent, I guess. They have cards like Shardless Agent, which is inherently a 2 for 1. It has the Cascade mechanic, which is whenever you cast it, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you find a spell that costs less, and then you can cast that one for free, which combines really well with all of the cheap, efficient creatures like Deathrite Shaman, Tarmogoyf, Baleful Strix, and the signature spell, I guess you would say, of the deck, Ancestral Visions, which is essentially Ancestral Recall, but it has Suspend. And the key being there that its converted mana cost is actually 0, so Shardless Agent can let you cast it for free just by cascading into it. And then Miracles, likewise, is a very grindy deck. It seeks to win by basically extending the game to as long as it can. It has the aforementioned Miracle is the name of the deck. It's also the primary mechanic, which lets you cast extremely powerful spells at a discounted rate if you drew them as the first card for your turn. Looks like Drake may actually have one of those in his opening hand.
Key among those already in hand, the classic Miracles opener. Starting with the Terminus in hand.
They do not like to see the Miracles in their hand. They prefer if they were on the top of their deck. And the reason they want them on the top is because of the other signature card of the deck.
The other top.
Yeah, Sensei's Divining Top, which we may actually be seeing right here. Yep, there it is.
Of course it is. He's always got it.
Yeah, so the Sensei's Divining Top allows the controller to manipulate the top cards of their library, which is clutch whenever you are attempting to cast miracle spells for the miracle cost. Now it looks like we've got a bit of glare on the right side of the on the table there. I don't know if we can get that fixed, but we'll be verbalizing all the plays and all the cards so to try and keep you up to speed. Now Drake opened up with a Flooded Strand, finding himself an island and casting that Sensei's Divining Top.
Lane Fox in their hand, looks like he took a mulligan down to 6. I think his opener was a 1-lander, so he threw that back.
Just an Underground Sea, right?
I want to say the original one had a Verdant Catacombs as its 1-land. This one I think has an Underground Sea and what looked like a Creeping Target, but I could be mistaken.
Oh, okay. I see.
I think I also saw 2 Ancestral Recalls, Vision.
So he has the potential to dig himself out of this if the
Very
game
much
goes
so,
on
and
enough.
then some.
Looks like he's also got a Brainstorm, at least one Brainstorm.
Looking like he might be a bit color screwed at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of blue-black lanes and Tarmogoyfs, but no green mana to cast those creatures.
Well, there's the end of turn Brainstorm, so maybe he can find something.
For him, you're right.
It's like a Force of Will, the Shardless Agent, and I didn't catch the other
that
one.
middle card I didn't see.
Anyway, Drake, on his turn, used the first activated ability of the Sensei's Divining Top, which is for 1 colorless, you can look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. That allows you to control your draws, which, like I mentioned before, is sort of the key of the deck, being able to utilize your miracle mechanic cards whenever you want.
It's a very powerful ability, especially when combined with the fetch lands that are such a staple of Legacy.
Yeah, because if you don't find anything in those 3 cards that you like, you can use your fetch lands. Oh, there's one for Lane, so he's no longer color screwed. You can essentially reset the top cards of your deck and can continue looking with your Sensei's Top for something better. I believe the second land he played was a Caracas.
On Drake's side, I can't tell.
Yeah, you can't really see it right now, but I'm pretty sure when he played it, I saw it was the Judge promo Caracas. shouldn't be a big deal in this matchup unless Lane is running Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
I don't think he... Actually, it looks like he does have a 1 of Jace, so if he manages to find it.
Well, I guess I take that back. Drake also has a pair of Vendilion Clicks in his deck, which are also legends, so it always will have some use. It's nice when it also gets to interact with your opponent's creatures. So we got a Tarmogoyf, that should be a 2/3. We don't have a Tarmogoyf die or a Tarmographic like some of the more enfranchised streaming or content providers, but we'll keep you up to date, and that one's currently just a 2/3.
It looks like Drake's missed a land drop already.
And there's a Thoughtseize off the top.
Yeah.
Although Thoughtseize isn't really the card you want when your opponent is missing land drops.
Definitely not. It means he's got a handful of spells.
Yeah. So you can take the best one, but he's probably still got a stockpile.
Additionally, Miracles is a deck that really wants to find their land drops to cast a large Entreat the Angels at the end of their turn. So
or at least get the Jace the Mind Sculptor down.
Exactly. Missing land drops is going to put Drake really far behind.
I don't like this play.
The Thoughtseize?
Well, I like the Thoughtseize. Lane chose to play the Thoughtseize after attacking, which, in this case, obviously, it drew out the Swords to Plowshares. But if he had played it pre-combat without the Swords to Plowshares, like if Drake didn't have the Swords to Plowshares, it would have increased the size of the Tarmogoyf because there wasn't a sorcery in the graveyard yet.
Yeah, I suspect he was probably hedging his bets that Drake had the swords, and so he just wanted to get to the attack before that card was played.
So we're once again spinning the top, as they say, spinning the top. That's the first ability where you can set your draws.
Top was in response to the Thoughtseize, so we'll see the hand now.
Or sort of. Looks like there's a counterspell.
Yeah, I see a counterspell Force
Will.
Not sure what that bottom card is.
There's
no, that's the Terminus.
Oh, a Terminus, and the other two are a little glare heavy, but maybe they'll spread them out for us so we can see what they all are. I don't think there's there's obviously no Brainstorm in this pile, because if there was, Drake would almost certainly have used that to hide some of the spells he went, or he might have used it already to try and find land. In this case, well, assuming we knew the whole hand, what do you think you take? It looks like he's taking one we couldn't identify, which is the Force of Will.
It's a little surprising. This is being a grindy, fair matchup. This is a matchup where 2-for-1ing yourself to counter one of your opponent's threats isn't always the best play.
There's that tar pit you called for.
Yeah, and he is leaving Drake with the counterspell in hand, which could much more easily 1-for-1.
Oh, and with the second island, now it's online. Well, so far, there's a Tarmogoyf. I was going to say, so far, it looks like Lane definitely has both the mana and resource advantage at this point. It looks as though he's got enough creatures now to apply pressure as long as he doesn't overextend. I mean, he knows the Terminus is in Drake's hand, so it's only a matter of time before a Jace or Brainstorm can put it back.
Yeah, although he does know that if Drake can't find a Brainstorm effect and put that card back on top of his library, that Terminus is just going to rot in his hand.
So here we have the Shardless Agent and the signature spell. Of course, there's the counter spell we knew about from before. This is a perfect example, like you said, where if he had taken the counter spell, Drake would be forced to try and use a Force of Will instead, which would be a much worse deal.
I'm also not sure that he actually had another blue card in hand at that point.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah, all we saw was the Terminus.
Because we knew of a Terminus and then
a counterspell.
The counterspell and the Force of Will, and I'm not sure what the last card was.
Yeah, the island was on top, so yeah, it's entirely possible he didn't have another blue card to pair with it. Well, regardless, the Shardless Agent has found an Ancestral Visions, which is a big deal, and Lane's willing to fight over it by tossing yet another Ancestral Visions.
That's 3 of the 4.
So I'm sure most people are familiar with Force Will, but for those who might not be, it's a counterspell. It costs 5 mana, but that's mostly irrelevant because its alternate casting cost is that you exile another blue card from your hand and pay 1 life, and then you can cast it for free. So in this case, Lane's exiling his Ancestral Visions, which even though it doesn't have a mana cost, it is still a blue spell to his Force of Will, and that's going to resolve. off of the Cascade trigger from Shardless Agent.
Creeping Target goes to the bottom after that Cascade.
Right, right. You can't cast lands. They don't. Their mana cost is technically 0, but they're not spells, so you can't cast them.
Yep.
I didn't see what all he drew. It looked like he drew a basic island, I think. Yeah. Or no, sorry, it's a tropical island. I don't know what basics Shardless Sultai runs, but I assume they've got at least a few. The deck seems like it would be very vulnerable to Blood Moon without them.
It does. It is a very powerful card against the deck. Luckily, they do have the Abrupt Decay to counter that. If they have the mana up, they can float mana in response to the moon, allow it to resolve, and then use that floating mana to cast the Abrupt Decay. But if they don't have that in hand, it can really, really hurt the deck a lot.
Yeah, I guess they're sort of on the Deathrite plan as the only backup mana. There was another land. It looks like Ancestral Visions is down to 2 counters. Yeah.
They do generally play, I believe, a number of basics, but pre-board at least that shouldn't come into play too much.
Well, they're not going to go fetch them.
Yeah.
Instinctively, I imagine, because the deck typically has some pretty stiff mana requirements. You can see for Shardless Agent they need blue and green. I know they run Liliana the Veil.
Hymn to Torok as well.
Hymn to Torok, which are both double black and early spells. And then they also need blue-black to activate the Tar Pit. So yeah, your mana really gets constrained if you don't...
and there's Jason the Mind Sculptor as well, double blue.
Double blue. Yeah, so casting all of their spells on time.
Looks like a Vendilion Click in response to this fetch land activation. It's going to get Abrupt Decayed in response to the trigger, I believe.
Yeah, I assume the trigger was targeting Lane then.
Yeah. Looks like he might have jumped the gun a little.
Yeah, he has to let the trigger resolve and announce who it's targeting. Then he can kill it.
Yeah.
There's another Swords of Plowshares in Drake's hand I saw.
Is there?
Oh, he's going after the Sensei's top.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's not...
Drake can draw with that top and put it on the library. The Abrupt Decay is going to whiff, and Drake will just draw that top for his turn. I guess its click shows a Tarmogoyf and another Verdant Catacombs, it looks like. If that Tarmogoyf does go back to the bottom, it'll get shuffled away by this fetch land that all this is happening on top of.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't forget that, because it'd be very easy, very, very easy to...
I think he put that Tarmogoyf into the graveyard, actually, from the click.
Oh, so we got a little bit of an error in the... Here, it should have gone... Vendilion Click takes the card from your hand and puts it on the bottom of your library. Now, he didn't forget to fetch, and there's, in fact, one of those basics we mentioned.
Yeah. With the removal of Dig Through Time from these decks, the graveyard shouldn't matter too terribly much. Oh, the addition of Creature might just come into play if you can find another Tarmogoyf.
Sure, yeah, I don't know if there's any other creatures in the graveyard right now.
I don't believe there was, because Terminus and Swords are Drake's removal spells, and those put it back in the library and into exile. And then Lane sent that Abrupt Decay after the top instead of the Vendilion Click.
Right, which Drake just redrew and replayed. Alright, Ancestral Visions moves to 1 counter. Boy, Lane is really
handful of lands there.
Flooded out. Although, if this Ancestral Visions resolves, which I would be a little skeptical at this point, with Drake missing so many land drops, he must have a handful of gas at this point. And at any time, he could just play a counterbalance, which is sort of the other big piece of the Miracles deck. The Miracles work well with the Sensei's Divining Top, but perhaps even a better combination is Sensei's Divining Top with Counterbalance, the 2-mana enchantment from Cold Snap that when an opponent casts a spell, you may reveal the top card of your library, and if it has the same converted mana cost as the spell being cast, it just counters it. So with a Sensei's Top, you effectively can counter all or most 1-mana spells at little or no effort. There's a Brainstorm, so the Terminus is going to finally be live. And then with the top being able to rearrange the tops, Sensei's Top being able to rearrange the top cards of your library, you can float, as they say, any selection of converted mana cost spells. And
if Drake doesn't have another blue mana this turn, he can't cast that counterbalance. So
that's true.
Ancestral Vision will go off unless Drake is a counterspell. which I believe in this case has to be Force of Will, again because of that double blue mana requirement.
Yeah, I don't think
Drake's still missing.
Drake, his list doesn't have any of the other like Spell Pierce or anything like that. And actually, Spell Pierce wouldn't begin to stop Visions right now.
He has plenty of lands to pay
Lane
for
is
it.
up to his fifth or sixth mana now.
Something like that.
He can pay for multiple Spell Pierces.
Attacking with the Creeping Target last turn, so that even when he is only drawing lands, he's still able to have
Right.
something going on.
Yeah, that's actually one of Miracle's sort of weaknesses or weak points is that lands that can turn into creatures provide an angle of attack that Miracles has a very hard time dealing with because its signature spell Terminus has a hard time dealing with them, and you can't counter them, so they can get in underneath the counter balance. So there was a Force of Will. I didn't see what it cost.
Exiling a Ponder.
So that's going to fight over the...
Lane with only lands in hands has no response to that, unfortunately.
Now he gets a draw step, maybe another tar pit.
I mean, it's not the worst thing.
No, I mean, like we just said, it gets past...
It's a
counter
powerful
spells.
card against the counter top decks, but
This seems risky, given that
he did just resolve the
Drake
brainstorm.
brainstormed last turn. Yeah, and there's the
Terminus
Terminus. Yeah, Drake didn't even have to spin his top first. He already knew it was coming. So yeah, it's probably a mistake on Lane's part to activate that tar pit. Now I know he's got a backup one, but I think he could have gotten in for 2 damage and not forced the Terminus and had Drake continue to float it.
Yeah, he may have forgotten about the Terminus in hand from the very beginning. I'm not sure if he wrote the card down. But
Yeah, it didn't look like Lane wrote down the hand whenever he played his Thoughtseize Knight. Drew a Liliana Veil, which
that's
is also
a very
another
powerful card.
Yeah, especially against Miracles, a deck that again has trouble dealing with creature lands and planeswalkers. Those are the 2 permanent types that give it the biggest fits.
Total of 4 creatures in the deck, and we just saw Vendilion Click go to the bottom from that Terminus.
Yeah, and sometimes they run. Yeah, he has a 1-of Council's Judgment, which
Yes.
is sort of their catch-all answer to everything that isn't a creature land. Unfortunately, in this case,
He doesn't have the double white that would be required to cast that card.
no, he could. Yeah, even if he drew it. Yet another land. Boy, Lane is up to what 7 mana, so he can play Liliana and animate his Creeping Tar Pit in the same turn.
Just on past that by that Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Brand new Origins card making its splash in Legacy.
Sort of speaks to the power of Miracles that Drake is hanging this game so well with only 3 mana
Yeah.
and an opponent who presumably hasn't missed a land drop. But I mean, there's definitely,
It's a blessing and a curse to never miss land drops.
if you're playing a deck like Delver, it's definitely a blessing because once you have 2 mana, you can pretty much hold up the rest of the game. Oh, and there's the Swords to Plowshares we saw earlier, so that'll take care of the tar pit.
It's both man lands answered unless you can manage to draw on that other one.
And now we have.
Why is he going through his library again?
Oh, I think he.
He thought that was a Path
Path
to
to
Exile
Exile.
for Modern.
Yeah, Lane. I've talked with Lane a few times. I know he plays a lot more Modern than Legacy, so he probably just instinctively assumed that he should search for a basic.
But
But
Liliana.
we'll get that rectified. That would just be a shuffle of his library. I don't believe he knew where any of the cards were because he resolved a fetch land earlier this turn.
Yeah, he just fetched.
So we've got a Liliana, which resolves, and both players are going to discard a card. Drake chooses his Snapcaster Mage, and Lane had yet another land. Oh, and that's got to be
Response
Jace.
Planeswalker, Jace the Mind Sculptor.
So Drake knew what his top card was, which is the 4th land he needed to cast the Jace the Mind Sculptor in his hand, and I imagine he's going to tick it up right away because the Brainstorm mode won't do any good for him.
Well, it'll start digging him into more lands.
It can, but Liliana's just going to take it.
That's true.
Like, whatever he could find, it'll lose. I mean, it's possible he could find something really good and then use the Sensei's top to protect it. Like, draw an extra card and use that to discard. But that only does work for so long, and it costs a lot of mana, and he's already somewhat constrained, especially with only having 1 white.
At the very least, he should still have a number of cards in hand, unless he...
No, Drake
he
has...
not?
Yeah,
Oh,
both players are Hellbent now, and there's a Tarmogoyf. I think the biggest thing to note is that he's still somewhat tight on mana. Drake is.
Very much so. Only 1 white mana, 4 lands total.
Actually, too, his 1 white mana is from a non-basic source, and I know Shardless Sultai plays at least 2 wastelands, maybe 3, so he could actually cut him off of white mana entirely, which would make that Tarmogoyf very good.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see what Drake's able to do with his turn.
The white cards in the Miracles deck, the only way to answer creatures outside of a Jason summon. Looks like he does go for the Brainstorm.
I think I saw another Terminus in there.
Like it, yeah.
And I know he drew a land, yeah. And a second top. So the nice thing about the second top there, normally a second Sensei's top isn't really all that useful, but this effectively lets him hide a card or have another card in hand, in air quotes, by keeping it on the top of his library, and he can draw it anytime he needs it, which protects it from the Liliana ability. Jace.
Looks like they're noticing now the Tarmogoyf that was in the graveyard.
Ooh.
From earlier.
So I wonder if, yeah, well, it would be a 4/5 at this point because of the Snapcaster Mage.
That's true. He has discarded one anyway, so.
But again, we still have the error of the Tarmogoyf not being in the deck like it ought to. Oh, and there's that Terminus I thought I saw. So Drake is drawing this on his on Lane's upkeep.
Yeah, playing around a Force of Will draw. Lane has more than enough mana to hardcast that spell.
Sure. But he's still got an active Liliana, which is typically pretty good against Miracles. If you can get it to one loyalty counter greater than its ultimate, which is, I guess, once it gets the 7 counters, you can use the ultimate to essentially wipe the Miracle player's board, or effectively wipe it, just wreck it pretty hard.
Liliana's ultimate reads separate target player's permanents into 2 piles. And they choose one of those piles and sacrifice all of the permanents in the other pile. Right.
So you as the Liliana controller get to divide the opposing player's permanents, and then the opposing player has to choose which pile they want to keep, which is of course never an easy decision when you're
generally you see a lot of lands in one pile and a lot of really good permanents in the other pile.
And against lands, there's a ponder. Against not lands, Miracles. It's a good decision to a lot of times put their Jace versus some of their other key permanents, or that would be what I would think you would go for here if I were Lane.
Well, a lot of times I've seen a Jace put in one pile and 5 lands atop and a counterbalance in the other pile. Player chooses the Jace, goes on to win the game.
Sure, because if you can't get rid of the Jace, he wins the game on his own. Yeah.
Very much so.
And that Deathrite Shaman is not exactly the answer. Mm-hmm. Now my Wasteland plan wouldn't work because it appears Drake has a basic island. Oh, Jace is brainstorming again. I see another Force of Will. Not sure what else is in his hand. Probably another land. Yep.
Flooded Strand.
So, and this is going to be another Sensei's top. Yeah, there was that Force of Will.
So Force of Will and Island and another card I didn't get a glance of.
I assume Drake is digging for an answer to the Deathrite Shaman because it represents a 4-turn clock.
It is a very healthy clock, although at this point I'd expect Drake to be digging for the Entreat the Angels
that
more
would
than
also,
anything,
that
just
would also
to
do it, yeah.
win the game. He's got more than enough lanes now to make enough Angels to kill Lane in one go.
Yeah, currently I don't know what Jace is at. I can't read that.
He's been brainstorming with a lot, so I don't expect it's terribly high.
But that could also win the game if he's able to stall long enough.
And for Lane to be able to answer something, I'm going to treat the Angels coming off the top of the top. The top with the top. Anyway, he would need something like drawing a Force of Will for turn and then not taking up Liliana to keep it in hand at the end of his turn, which is generally not a very good play.
Right, usually you want to...
So it's definitely not an easy thing to answer.
Yeah, and because they're able to do it, on the end step, thanks to Sensei's Divining Top, it's not like you can use a Wrath or a Toxic Deluge style effect to deal with it typically. So I don't know what he drew, but he now has the decision of okay, so he's going
for that ultimate.
He's going to ultimate Liliana now. Now the way this works is you target the player before and on resolution you divide the permanents. So Drake has to decide if he wants to draw any cards. In this case, he had a Terminus, which is going to get rid of that Deathrite Shaman. before the piles are divided, because after that, you can't use your sensei's tops once you've chosen once the piles are separated. Sorry, looks like we're gonna take a Swords to Plowshares with the Deathrite Shaman's activated ability. And now we'll have some permanents divided up. Now, it's worth noting that there is a Sensei's Divining Top on top of the deck, so whichever pile has the top isn't as valuable as it normally is because he has a replacement one.
You'll see Lane splitting the colors of the lands into each pile. So all islands in one and all white mana in the other.
And the top and Jace go with the white pile. I like that decision.
Looks like the Jace is going at the white card, the white lands, and the top is going with the blue.
So in this case, okay, so
get rid of all his
Drake is willing to play with just white mana. I don't know if I like that.
I think at this point he's hedging his bet on that Jace to win the game.
Sure. No, I'm saying I don't like it from Lane because
allowing
right.
him to have the Jace.
And there's a top still too, so all of the white spells, which are what's going to protect Jace, are still alive.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Drake doesn't need blue spells. Hypothetically, he could get out of this without any blue spells for the remainder of the game. He just can use Swords to Plowshares that are left and treat the. I don't know if he has any. I'm sorry, Terminus is what I meant. Any Terminus left. Although without any threats and yet another land draw for Lane, I don't know if he's got much going on. Here's the real killer mode, an empty board, or essentially an empty board with a Jace. Now you get to use his ability, his plus ability to control your opponent's draw steps.
That looks like a Shardless Lane just drew. That's a very powerful draw right here.
Especially if it finds him a second. Yeah, it is a Shardless Agent, so that trigger will.
Cascading into a
Deathrite Shaman. Okay, so there's some threads.
Not too bad. It's 2 creatures as well, so Swords to Plowshare is much less impressive.
Yeah.
As a defense.
I don't know how many counters the Jace has if it's a.
Yeah, the die is too small. I can't tell.
If the clock is, I don't know who's winning this race. Which team, the Jace or the 2 creatures, will kill faster. Basically, Drake now has 2 turns to finish the game, assuming he can't find anything to get rid of those.
That's true. It may be a better plan for Lane to just attack Drake since he's at such a low life total.
Right. And that makes the fetch land a whole lot worse, because 4 life versus 5 is a big difference here with those 2 creatures.
Yeah, Drake would die on Lane's next turn if he uses that fetch land.
So he had better be pretty confident it's going to work. Oh, that was on the end step.
Yeah.
Not sure what the players are discussing specifically.
I think Lane was misunderstanding the hand wave as a passing of the turn back to him.
Oh, right. And yeah, Drake hasn't even drawn yet for his turn.
Top activations can take such a long time, you can forget where you are in the turn.
Wow, it looks like Drake is very confident going down to 4 life.
Activating a fetch land.
And he found, looks like another basic island. So he has blue mana yet again.
Now this is a dangerous play because he isn't able to Terminus to answer both of those creatures at once because he's already drawn a card for this turn. So if he wants to use a Terminus to answer them, he would have to do it on the upkeep, and Lane could activate Deathrite Shaman in response. It won't be Summoning Stick anymore.
Yeah, no,
and it would put Drake to 2.
I'm pretty sure I saw a Terminus in that pile of cards. So I believe that's all 4 of them for this game, which is exactly what you need when you're playing against a deck that draws creatures that find more creatures.
Exactly.
And there's the Terminus.
No, it was...
Oh, he just drew a card?
It was a drawing of a card.
It's a Snapcaster Mage.
That's a very, very useful card here. Able to Swords the Deathrite Shaman and then block Shardless Agent.
Right.
Keep Drake from taking any damage.
I also wonder if Drake's aware that he's at 4 life when he did that, because the die says he's at 5, but I know we've been keeping up with it.
I think that's at 6.
Oh, sorry, no. I can't. Well, Lane is at 13, and it looks like... Well, he definitely doesn't think he's at 20. So I'm assuming these are the numbers that they think they're at.
I see.
But yeah, Drake has 5 on his die, and I'm pretty sure we've kept up with it that he's actually at 4 life. Although it's not likely to matter given that all of Lane's creatures... I don't know if I like that attack into the Snapcaster Mage there. Like, it's obvious he'll block, and you might still find an Abrupt Decay or something that can
I don't know what you gain by answering the Snapcaster Mage.
Alright, so we've got a shuffle.
I guess.
Lane is doing this at the end of Drake's turn to give himself a better draw because presumably the card left on top is nothing good.
See, what Drake could do is he could untap and then use Jace's unsummon ability to bounce Snapcaster to his hand, and then Snapcast another spell.
That's true, man. I guess that warrants an attack. I don't know how likely that is, but given that he's on the plus Jace to win strategy, but
it's definitely probably not something that he would actually do.
But that is a line that I guess is worth considering when you're.
And there was the abrupt.
There's the abrupt decay. Unfortunately, does nothing for Lane here as he plays his 9th mana source.
Can't answer the
8th mana source.
Sculptor.
I assume this Jace has got to be close to winning the game.
Probably very close.
That looked like a huge tick down, and he's now showing Lane.
Lane's reading it. Oh no!
This is basically the end
for you.
usually.
You can draw an abrupt decay and then lose.
Yep. And Lane packs him in.
Concession of the game.
And it's better to do that than reveal the rest of your deck in case you have something spicy coming up. So Drake Sasser takes game 1 in this ultra grindy slugfest that is Miracles versus Shardless Sultai. Anyway, we're going to take a minute now to talk about one of our sponsors and recognized altarist for the Legacy Tour Huntsville. Eric Clare at the Clare Bar Studios does really fantastic alterations and commissioned artwork pieces. You can see a few of the examples of his work there. How do you feel about altars, Chris?
I think they're pretty cool. I've come to think very highly of them recently. When I first started playing, I was all about the foils, but lately I've become really a big fan of these artists, of these altars. Sorry.
Yeah, I especially like the wasteland there that's depicted.
That's a cool.
I think that's very, very neat. And I've seen he did that for more than just that wasteland. He also does it. I saw a Joyra the Gitu that was done for a commander player. It looked fantastic. So. Anyway, that's one of our highlighted artists for the Legacy Tour Huntsville. So check out his Facebook page at Clare Bar Studios. Now on to the sideboards. I'll let you start, Chris. What do you think Lane's going to bring in? What do you think he'll take out? What's good in this matchup?
For Lane, I would expect to see the Vendilion Click come in, the Null Rod come in, maybe the Grafdigger's Cage as an answer to Snapcaster, but I'd find that a little...
Seems a little narrow.
Yeah, it is very narrow. Meddling Mage is also a possibility. I've seen some players bring that in against the Miracle deck, but they definitely have a lot of answers to it. If he does bring in those, he'd need the Scrubland as well to cast it. Pithing Needle I like a lot. It can answer a Jace and a top. Golgari Charm as an answer to Counterbalance sometimes is okay. Although, against Shardless Sultai, I think the
Abrupt Decays.
The Counterbalance is a little worse. Yeah, the Abrupt Decays are also an answer. But sometimes you just need a little more of them if you think that could really lock you out of the game.
Sure.
The Nihil Spellbomb and the Force of Will I don't expect to come in. The Thoughtseize may come in for additional hand disruption, but in these grinding matchups, I don't think it's terribly good.
Yeah, given that Lane's on the play, Thoughtseize might be better. I think on the draw, because you can't snag a Sensei's top, it's not quite as good. And he take out probably Force of Wills. I think that's.
I would expect the Force of Wills to come out. I would expect potentially some amount of the hand disruption. I'm not sure how good it is here. The Toxic Deluge should probably come out as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to do a lot. I guess him to Torok is probably kind of weak in this matchup.
They just spent it's powerful if you can cast it early, but they spent so much of the last game Hellbent that it wouldn't have done much as a top deck there, and I expect this game to play out much the same way.
Sure.
The Baleful Strix as well isn't a very powerful card in this matchup. It's generally good when there's a lot of creature interaction going on.
Right, and this won't have much. On the Miracles player side, he's got a pair of Monastery Mentors. I think those are a shoe-in to come in. They're really strong against at providing sort of a pseudo card advantage against a deck that's so you can try to keep up essentially.
Definitely.
Like we mentioned earlier, Blood Moon is really good against a deck that's just jam-packed full of non-basics, and Lane may not even be aware that it's coming, that it could really catch him off guard. Rest in Peace is typically good against Tarmogoyf-style decks, although in this matchup specifically, I'm not sure it's at its best.
Yeah, there's a lot of really powerful threats that Lane has that Rest in Peace does nothing to answer, like the Jason, the Liliana, the Planeswalkers especially. Yeah, and even enough of his creatures, I guess, Shardless Agent, if he leaves the Baleful Strixes, they don't care about it. So I don't think Wear Tear is useful enough, although there are some artifacts. And I guess there's a chance that he could bring them just anticipating
hate.
Yeah, I see where Tear came in a lot after sideboard regardless. It answers things like Null Rod that would shut down the Sensei's Divining Top. And it's also a card that if you reveal it to counterbalance, can counter both a 1-drop and a 2-drop.
Which is relevant. Now,
that's a very powerful thing to have, and it's just a very flexible card.
Containment Priest, Sulfur Elemental, this isn't the matchup for that. No, Same thing with Staticaster. I don't think Flusterstorm does enough to warrant bringing it in, although if Drake needs to take a lot of cards out, I could see bringing it in. And Pyroblast is probably coming in just because it's so good against Ancestral Visions.
Oh, certainly.
Anyway,
like Tournament Thoughtseize we talked about.
Yeah, see, now this is the time when you really want it.
Exactly.
Anyway, as far as cards that would come out, I expect the Force of Wills in some number will be taken out. And actually, if I was the Miracles player, I think I'd be boarding a lot of my counterbalances out as well. Exactly. Mostly because they're just so dead against Abrupt Decay.
Drake with a hand of 4 lands and Entreat the Angels, the Wear Tail that we talked about, and then a Brainstorm. Lane takes the Brainstorm, generally the most powerful card, especially compared with when paired with a fetch land.
So he drew a Ponder for the turn, I think, which is a good draw.
Very useful.
Whenever he's lost his Brainstorm. Oh, and there's the Hymn to Torax are still in, which, if he has the land, in this case, it's going to be really strong
to
him.
I see that fetch land.
Now, Drake has plenty of lands, but if you can catch, like, both of his action spells, or maybe an action spell and a dual land or something like that, you can really put a crimp in their in the Miracles player's development. So let's see what he goes for here. I imagine he's going to get the a Bayou.
He's past a Bayou. It was the first card.
Maybe he's just
on there, I think.
Looking through all the options. Yeah.
Maybe considering a basic as well. Miracles often brings in that Blood Moon.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if Lane expects it, but if he did, he might know to, or he might consider at least playing around it if he can. Looks like we're going for another Thoughtseize.
I don't mind this at all because Drake had so many lands in hand that Hymn to Torax is likely to just hit 2 lands that Drake doesn't necessarily care too much about.
So Drake's Ponder found a Ponder, and now he's taken that, and he's got his Ancestral Visions set up, which is also good.
As well.
Yeah, typically you see them the Shardless players open up on their key sorcery here, the Ancestral Visions, because it takes so long for it to tick down and actually affect the game. But in this case, I kind of like Lane's decision to wait a turn to do it, because this game is almost 100% going beyond 5 or 6 turns. So you can start the countdown timer a little later and still get plenty of value out of it.
Yeah, that's definitely still going to come off the stack and attempt to be cast. So he won't run out of time for that spell. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's not like he's playing Storm, where if you wait a turn, you may never see another one. I see another Ancestral Visions, which I don't guess he wants unless he's got a land.
Ancestral Visions, Abrupt Decay, Tarmogoyf, the Hymn we saw from earlier, a Force of Will, and then one more card that I think he just put back that I didn't get a glance of.
What we didn't see was a land played, which means we assume he's Brainstorm locked.
Definitely a stacked hand for Lane. A lot of action, although he is missing a little bit on lands. I think currently Brainstorm locked because he doesn't have that follow-up fetch land.
Right, so whatever he put back, he's going to have to draw.
Brutal.
And one of the cards, at least, is a Force of Will, which
could buy Drake the time he needs to recover from that double Thoughtseize opener.
Yeah. Let's see. He fetched the volcanic. This could be bad if he's found the Blood Moon. Looks like he did not. So Lane is safe for at least another turn.
Yeah.
And there is now we can see the reason he found a Vendilion Click.
Trust that Vendilion Click,
which I wonder if Lane is looks like he's willing to fight over this.
Gonna force it, exiling another Ancestral Visions.
It's a steep cost to keep the click away. Although I think this means he's trying to resolve the Hymn to Torax, which if it Tarmogoyf. Okay,
So he just wants to get the threat on the table.
I think I might have gone for the Hymn there if I was in his position. It can be so devastating against an opponent whose hand is already, running low on resources, and it's likely to also take whatever might be in Drake's hand to answer the Tarmogoyf. This way, you leave him with the ability to find an answer.
Also, Drake was tapped out at that point, so he wouldn't have been able to brainstorm a response to the Hymn to Torax, which is a common answer to it.
Yeah, I mean, you use the brainstorm basically to hide your best spells on top of your deck so that they can't be taken away. There's that Abrupt Decay we saw earlier. Once again, I don't like that. I don't like the sequencing. I would much rather play the Hymn to Torak before you attack, because if there's a chance you get some permanent type that isn't already in the graveyard, it just makes the the Tarmogoyf bigger.
And being very aggressive with that Hymn to Torak, placing it directly on Drake's board. You got to
Yeah,
show those scrubby miracle players who's boss.
A bit of encroachment. That's all right. He found a Terminus, which is going to deal with the Tarmogoyf at least, and then we'll have a resolved Hymn to Torak to take care of most of Drake's hand.
A lot of things happening at once here.
Not sure. No, that wasn't a Source to Plowshares. You don't gain any life.
Yeah.
So, do we know what that face-up card is?
Which one, on Drake's board?
Yeah.
That was the
sorry, it's the yeah, it's the encroaching Torak. Got it. Now, next turn's going to be big. If Drake can't find a solution to that Ancestral Visions, which we assume he doesn't have because he's only on one card.
Yeah, he shrugged his hand, so Lane's going to get his Ancestral Recall action going on.
I see a Null Rod, another land, 2 more lands. So a Null Rod and 2 lands were the draws, which is good because Lane was hurting for mana, and now he should be just fine. Guess he'll find probably a tropical island here and complete the set.
The perfect mana fixing could be looking for another black source as well, or those basics that we've been talking about.
Yeah,
looks like that's what it's going to be, that basic swamp.
Opting to maybe give some respect to Blood Moon now that he can afford to, I guess.
Yeah, he's already got pretty good color fixing. The only thing he's really missing is a couple more.
Shardless Agent?
Yeah.
Oh, and an Abrupt Decay with no target.
Oh, no.
Well, sometimes that happens. I guess that's sort of the cost of playing those kind of spell. What do we have?
That looks like you treat the angels.
Oof.
Oh.
Now Lane is assuming that this is a Terminus, but it's not. He'll have to get that Shardless Agent back.
Yeah.
Not that it'll do him a lot of good against that army, but
put it in the graveyard again as well. You need to talk to him about that.
Yeah. Well, I know Lane's a lot newer to Legacy. Now he's been playing Magic for a long time, but he hasn't played Legacy much. So now this is a little thing, but again, I don't like some of the decisions here. I wonder if the feature match is putting a little excess pressure on Lane.
It might be. It's stressful to be on camera for the first time if you're not used to it.
He used the Verdant Catacombs to fetch a swamp, and then a Polluted Delta. Can't find a green source, which I presume if we're going to have 2 basics, it'll be the green and black, since that gives you the mana to get out from under a Blood Moon.
There's the Baleful Strix.
That'll help stop one of those angels. I wonder if
drew him a Force of Will just in time to be too late to stop the retreat.
Yeah. Now does he have? He has an Abrupt Decay still, right? From earlier, the one that was Brainstorm locked.
Yeah, I believe he does still have that.
So he can take care of another angel. That smells like a Jace. 4 mana.
That's not good. He's got the Force of Will, but he doesn't have another blue card in hand to counter it.
Oh, and he's picking up the... Oh, man. So Drake thinks he can win this match through a...
But you know what this means, don't you? Lane can play that Baleful Strix next turn and draw another card. Oh, the value. That looks like a Pithing Needle.
Well, Pithing Needle would deal with Jace. Unfortunately, it's not going to...
He's got a much more pressing issue here.
The pair of angels that he has to get rid of is a little more important, and with only 4 life, he has to actually deal with both of them.
So the problem here is that Lane has to answer 2 angels, and that Baleful Strix is probably going to get bounced by the Jace, so he can only answer 1, or he can't actually answer either one with that.
Well, he could have... Lane could attack Jace. Jace is only at 2 counters,
That's true, he could.
So if he had... Oh, he's going to needle it. Well, that pretty much seals the deal then. One of those angels is most likely going to get through.
I think Drake just untaps and kills him here.
I don't see how, unless there's a Disfigure, you could make it a 2/2?
Go to 2.
Or, nope, it looks like that's it. It was a Null Rod and a Jace.
Drew that Jace, no!
Well, that's it. A timely Entreat the Angels, which I believe Drake knew about from the Brainstorm before the Hymn to Torak.
Yeah, and Entreat one of those cards that can take an early land-heavy hand that you're not doing much and just take over the game that you had no business winning.
Well, in any event, that brings us to the conclusion of round 1. Drake Sasser takes it 2-0.